Yes, Tredethick has 9 holiday cottages with lots of additional facilities, including indoor pool, play barn, soft play. We decided to install a wind turbine because we're very fortunate we're in a good location. That's absolutely vital. If you don't have a good location, then in fact you just won't get a decent return on your investment or generate very much electricity. So we're very fortunate on that front. The solar PV, well, so many people have piled into that recently because it has just offered a very good return on investment. But yet again, we had a large agricultural barn that, although it didn't face south, it had a shallow elevation, east-west elevation, and actually there are solar panels on the market that are quite good in that, that situation. So we've been able to make use of that, that option. And then by far the largest investment, the biomass district heating, suited us because we have holiday cottages. Some of those are barn conversions that aren't particularly well insulated. Not much we can do about that. It doesn't matter how much loft insulation we put in the loft. The walls are still old stone walls that have no cavity insulation. And the pool, indoor pool, uses a lot of heating. We were burning a lot of oil. We've actually ripped out 10 or 5 boilers, and we were buying in up to 40,000 litres of oil a year. Now we're buying no oil. We're just buying in our own energy crop, but we'll soon be actually growing our own as well. So it made sense for us to go down those routes. The wind turbine was installed in March 2010, and it's actually producing about 20% of our electricity. So it's producing about between 15 and 20,000 kilowatt hours a year. The great thing about that is that it does give us a good return on investment with the feed-in tariffs. And also I used to get quite frustrated and annoyed at how many windy days we had here, fairly high up in Cornwall, and now I quite like windy days. So it's a positive when it's blowing a hoolie. I actually quite like it. The solar PV is a 30 kilowatt system, so that's actually producing about a third of our electricity. We scouted around the whole farm, looking at our existing buildings and farmland, etc., at the best site, and we have in fact got a large agricultural building that faces, the roof basically faces east-west. Okay, everybody tends to pile into south-facing roofs, but in fact that's fine because we do very well at generating electricity in the mornings and late afternoons when we need it most. So we find that pretty much everything that's generated we're using, which of course has more value. So that's in fact working out very well for us.
So does that mean you're generating about 50% of your own electricity, 20% from the wind turbine and then 30%?
We are, overall, if you look at the whole year, then about 50% of electricity is now coming from our own renewable sources. Yep, the biomass boiler is now centrally located in the corner of a farm shed. We feed the miscanthus, the energy crop, into the boiler. It's all done automated, so we don't have to touch it from day to day. And that actually sends hot water all the way through all the properties to the swimming pool, etc., actually supplying all our hot water and our central heating. And that's wonderful because we no longer burn 40,000 litres of oil each year. We need approximately 80 tonnes of miscanthus a year to actually meet demand. Because we're a farm, that's quite handy because we have the land to actually grow our own. So this spring we're actually planting a 12-acre field with miscanthus. We'll have to wait 2 years for the first crop, and then after 5 years we should be self-sufficient and producing all that we need. It's very difficult to gauge exactly what sort of return on investment you're going to make because you don't know for sure how much energy you're actually going to require precisely. It's a little bit of looking at how much oil you burnt before and everything else. But we're looking at up to 20% return on investment. That's with the renewable heat incentive payments and with obviously the savings on no longer buying in oil. If we hit 20%, I'll be very happy. It could be, it could be lower, but that's obviously, a good commercial decision. We're doing well because obviously there are good returns with the feed-in tariffs for electricity generation. This, of course, here we're talking about heat, and it's mostly because we'll actually be producing our own fuel, actually growing our own fuel. That's why we should be getting an even better return. So it obviously suits us in our particular situation. Obviously, we looked at each project individually, The wind turbine probably took a good 12-18 months before we actually had it installed from start to finish. This is obviously researching, going out to companies, having tenders, seeing which is the right turbine for us, etc. Planning for us actually was fine. We just sailed through. And in fact, what's interesting is a lot of local people that look across at the turbine really like it. They like to look across and see which way the wind's blowing and how much it's blowing. So we've had actually a good reaction. The solar PV, fortunately for us, we actually didn't need planning permission because the solar PV also supplies the farm and it's on a farm shed. We're fine. We didn't need to have planning, but it wouldn't have been an issue anyway. And the biomass district heating, then again, we didn't need planning because everything's installed inside an existing building. All the pipework is hidden underground. Planners basically don't need to get involved. The only real upheaval was with the district heating system. The wind turbine sited 200 metres away from the business. Okay, we had to trench down to the mains, but that wasn't any major hassle. Solar PV, that was all on an agricultural barn roof next door to the business, so that didn't really impact negatively in any way. The biomass, we did choose to close the business for a period of 4 weeks. Now, that didn't matter too much to us because we chose to obviously close at our quiet time in January, so we didn't lose very much income at all. We'd have only received a few bookings at that time of year had we been open. But it did look like the Somme for a couple of weeks. Trenches everywhere and mess and muck everywhere, but that's fine because we were closed and it was just part of the process. The biomass, I actually started looking into that probably a few years ago, and what I found was you had a lot of conflicting information, and the more that I found out, the more confused I became. So I did in fact eventually go to a consultant who managed to sort things out. We found out what was the best system for us. We put it out to tender, and it all sort of took on a life of its own and actually moved quite rapidly. Once the consultant became involved, it was 6 months from the first meeting to when it's all installed and up and running. It's very quick. Using a consultant was money well spent. I mean, in the past, I've given consultancy to other people, and now I find I'm buying in consultancy. And I think, obviously, consultants vary, but very good consultants can, save or make you substantial amounts of money. I think the best advice to give is to research well beforehand, because obviously there's a lot of new startup companies out there competing for business, and they're a mixed bunch. Some of them are extremely good, some of them aren't so good, and of course they want your business, so they'll tell you things that need a little bit of checking out before you commit. I think there's lots of reasons why people should invest in renewables. One, at the moment, most of them are offering very good returns on investment, so we may be in a recession, but there's something out there that actually you can invest in that will give you a good return. Interest rates are very low. It's a good time in that sense. They always say you should invest in a recession, and the risks are quite limited. It's not a high risk venture, so it's got a lot of positives going for it. I mean, we were winning environmental awards. 13, 14, 15 years ago. So, a long time before it became quite fashionable to be environmental, and before people were using words like carbon footprint, etc. So, my view then was that winning national awards, environmental awards, didn't particularly help our business. If you hold a clipboard and stand in the middle of a high street and ask people if they would choose their holidays based on how environmental it was, they'd probably say yes, of course. But in reality, they choose it because it's what they're looking for as far as their experience and enjoyment and everything else. So I don't think it has much of an effect. I think it's often overhyped, but commercially, it's a good move still. But on the PR marketing front, it's limited. Certainly doesn't do any harm, but it's not going to make a great deal of difference. This is another issue. Is I think longer term, you have to take the view that it's only electricity, oil, gas, all these are going to become more expensive. So you can do your calculations on current prices, but the chances of those prices actually holding are pretty small. They're almost certainly going to continue to climb, and maybe quite strongly. So I certainly view it on 3 fronts. One, it gives us a certain amount of security in that we're producing a big chunk of our own energy. It's also very good commercially, and it's very good environmentally. So it has three positives.